after high school and where it's led her today. We want to welcome Kristen Knackstedt, a 2014 Inman High School graduate. Kristen was an outstanding student, leader, and athlete for us at Inman while in high school. She was a class president, student council co-president, and an FFA, National Honor Society, dance, cheer, and was an all-league athlete in volleyball and softball. She was involved with a lot of organizations. After high school, she attended Kansas State University. Her love of the dairy farm led her to completing a bachelor's degree in animal sciences and industry. While at K-State, she management the summer before her senior year with Ag Oasis in Liberal, Kansas, to landing another internship position in California with ABS Global. Currently, she has returned to Inman to begin helping manage the family's dairy. Please welcome Kristen to speak with us today.
Alright, so hi guys. Like you said, I'm Kristen Knackstedt. I was a 2014 graduate. I just recently graduated from K-State this last May. A little bit about me. I was pretty involved in high school. I was pretty much in anything and everything I could think of. I like to stay pretty busy. Going to K-State, that was kind of a big change for me. I was really active in sports. That was my favorite. So when I went off, I didn't really go on scholarship or anything, but I found ways to get involved. I played club volleyball actually for a year and a half. I kind of dipped my foot in the club softball, did a game or two, and then intramural. So for those of you seniors who are going off and you love sports, but you don't really necessarily want to get a scholarship, bigger schools, there are still ways that you can play sports and be involved. So, kind of going on my career path, I was born and raised on a dairy farm. That kind of led me into choosing what I wanted to do. When I was a senior, I knew I wanted to go to Kansas State right off the bat. That was always my dream. I always wanted to be a Wildcat. My family is definitely bleeds purple, so I knew there was no doubt in going to a different school. When I was a senior, I actually thought I wanted to go into engineering. I liked math. I was really pretty good at math. So I took some visits to Kansas State and went to the engineering department and found out that was totally not for me. Then I thought after that, maybe I want to go into kinesiology, which is exercise science. I did the same thing. I went there and I found out that was not for me. So I kind of felt my roots kind of pulling me back towards agriculture. That's where I grew up. And so when I was little, I always wanted to be a doctor. Kind of my senior year, I decided, I think I want to be a vet. I always loved, caring for the sick ones on the farm. I loved when the vet came out. I would always be out there watching him and all that. So going onto my freshman year at K-State, I was animal science with the option of pre-vet. Going through my first year, I won't lie, it was a struggle. High school came pretty easy to me. I didn't really have to study. College came and wow, eye-opener. You have to study. You don't study, guess what? You don't get A's and B's anymore. So that was kind of a little bit of a struggle for me. By the end of my freshman year, I kind of had felt myself missing that dairy farm. And once I got to college, I kind of realized, there is a lot more options out there in the career industry in animal science and not just vet. Everybody, when you say, oh, you're in animal science, the first thing they say is, oh, are you going to be a vet? That'll get on your nerves. So I learned that there's a lot of career options out there. And so, I kind of changed my option to production management. I kind of wanted to stay within the dairy industry. So that's how I did that. So how many of you have heard the quote, it's not what you know, it's who you know? Raise your hand. Who's heard that? All right. So I'm here to tell you that that is 110% true, but to an extent. So going in after my junior year, I had a class, dairy management class, and we went on a couple dairy tours of the farms. And I went there, met with the owner, whatever, and at the end of it, the owner says, hey, if anybody is looking for some weekend jobs, let me know. In the back of my head, I'm like, oh, that might be a good step for me to get back into the dairy industry, you know, while I'm still at college, view some different worlds in it. And so actually one of our old milkers was actually a grad student at Kansas State at the time and actually sat in on all of my classes of dairy management. So I asked him how he liked this dairy, like what the people were like. He's like, you know, I think it's gonna be a great opportunity for you, go for it. So I get in contact with the owner again, sure enough, I get the job. So on weekends I'm working at this dairy. I go through my junior year, and one thing Kansas State preaches is internships, on how important internships are. And you know, when I was a freshman, sophomore, I was like, internships, you know, I go home, I can work, like, what if I'm not outgoing enough? I don't want to do an interview. All this stuff was like going through my head. So finally my junior year came around, and after I got this job, I thought, you know, I think an internship would be really good for me. And so I was kind of looking at some internships and had a couple in mind. I went to one of my professors who was like our career deal, and I kind of told her what I was thinking. She's like, you know, go talk to this guy, Luis. He is the Kansas State Extension Dairy Specialist. He'll know a lot more. So I went and talked to him, and I kind of told him my options. He's like, you know, what, have you ever thought about the Ag Oasis one? And I'm like, no. He's like, well, it's a lot bigger than what you like experienced, so it's going to be different. They milk about 3,500 head. My dairy at home, we milk about 120 to 150, kind of depending on the year. So, as you can imagine, that's a big change. So, I applied, went through the interview process. One of the guys, well, Luis, so he knew the people that, the dairy that I had worked for. So that's kind of how I got my foot into that. He told Luis, you know, she's a great worker, anybody would love to have her, yes, hire her. That's how I got my internship. Then after that, Luis was like, you know, I'm getting ready to go out there. Why don't you ride along? And I was like, okay, like I'll go see what it's about. So I go out there and I see this dairy. And this is what I see. Pens and pens and pens of cattle. That's just one pen. There's probably about 10 of those. So you can imagine me, my total dairy farm is maybe half of that pen. My eyes just lit up like, holy cow, what did I get myself into? And I kind of freaked out. And so I went back to Luis and I'm like, you know, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is for me. He said, Kristen, you know, this is a really good opportunity for you. I think you're gonna like it. Try it. So I said, okay, you know, I'll stick with it. So my junior year of summer, I moved out to Liberal, Kansas, middle of nowhere, and did this internship. I loved it. I had a great time. I was doing a 3 kind of rotation deal. I was on maternity, breeding, and herd health. During internships, you know, those people, they're looking for you to come back and have a career with them. And so during that time, they're allowing you to pretty much do everything on your own. So when I was in maternity, I was checking cows all by myself. I was pulling cows all by myself. I was doing a lot of it by myself. When I was in breeding, they had a company called ABS Global. They kind of lease them out, so you say, to come breed for them. I was with that breeder, and I kind of got to know him. He got to kind of know me. I realized that I had a kind of increased interest in reproduction in the cattle. And he's like, you know, I think you would like doing something up in headquarters up in Wisconsin in ABS Global. And I'm like, okay, you know, like, that's a good way to, you know, think about career path. So, kind of fast forward a little bit. End of summer, had a great time. Comes my senior year, I get a job offer from Ag Oasis. It was really hard for me to decline, but I declined it because I felt like I had other opportunities that I kind of wanted to explore. So, ABS Global, there was another internship opportunity. Sorry, my mind is blank. So I turned down my offer from Ag Oasis, kind of was looking for some other opportunities, saw this internship kind of arise. I really didn't know what I wanted to do my senior year, so I kind of decided to do an internship. That way, you know, if I didn't like it, I could back out, kind of essentially, and if I loved it, then hey, then I could potentially have a job. So, how I got ABS Global, I applied. this guy that I had worked with at Ag Oasis, he referred me to call somebody at headquarters for a job before I knew the internship. So I called him, you know, I kind of chatted with him on like what my interests were, what I wanted to do. And he said, you know, I think you know you want to be in this area, but I don't think you know what you want to do. So I think an internship would be really good for you. So I said, okay. So I applied for the internship, and then kind of backwarding, at Ag Oasis, when I was working with ABS Global, I got the chance to meet a lot of people in the industry, and one of those people was the regional manager for the Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma area or whatever. Guess who I interviewed for that internship? That guy. So then I got news that I got the internship, and I accepted it. So Flint, which was that guy I interviewed with, called me, and he says, you know, what are your horizons on your location? I'm like, well, you know, I kind of like to be a little more central, but, you know, I'm young. Why not travel? I'm kind of open to anywhere. So he said, how about California? So I had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of different things. The road trip there was awesome. I got to go see Utah, which is the top middle. Got to go see the Hoover Dam, bottom left. Got to go to LA, Disneyland. Got to go to Newport Beach. Got to go to Yosemite before it burnt down. San Francisco. Got to go tour Alcatraz. That middle picture was one of my views that I had to work driving some days. That was pretty cool. But I would not have gotten to the opportunity to do any of this if it wasn't for that internship and me taking that leap and going out of my box. Because let me tell you, going to California was completely out of my box. To go outside of the state for something, if it's for a trip, if it's in a little bubble. I will admit, I was pretty naive living here. My mom will even vouch for me for that. I go out to California and it's crazy. Where I lived in, it was a pretty good neighborhood. I go 2 blocks down the road and there's cops there all the time. It's very dangerous. So my eyes opened really quickly. So kind of going back to it's not what you know, it's who you know. How many of you believe that now? So everything that I have done is because of who I knew. I used what I know, though, to do a good job and to get all those job offers. I still have my old boss just called me a couple weeks ago wanting to know if I wanted to come back. My manager in California told me when I left, he's like, if you ever want a job, come talk to me. If I don't have a position for you, I'll make one. So if you do a good job, those people are gonna want you no matter what. Another kind of deal that I want to put past you guys is don't burn your bridges. If I would have burned just one bridge with any single one of those persons, my strings could have been cut right there, and I could have gotten none of those opportunities that I had. Another example, so I also, thanks to Luis, the guy from Knackstedt, I had applied to another genetics company called Alta, and he helped me get accepted and into it, and I was actually one of 10 finalists out of probably either 100 to 150 people. They flew me out to Wisconsin for another interview. But fortunately at the same time, I didn't get it. But 2 of the other internees were there that I met. I ended up working with ABS Global. So if I would have made a bad impression on them, you know, that could have gone around within our company and all that kind of stuff. So don't burn your bridges. So everybody look around right now. Look at your neighbor. Look at all your friends. Look at your teachers in the back. You don't know if you're going to be working with the person that's sitting next to you. Those people in the back, they're the ones that help you get into college. They're the ones that help you get scholarships. They help me. So, you know, don't burn your bridges. It's a big world out there, but it's also one world out there. So we're all living in the same world. And lastly, find your passion and do what you love. Don't do what your mom wants, what your dad wants, what your boyfriend wants, what your grandma wants, what your best friend wants. You have to find what you want. If I would have done what anybody else wanted me to do, I would not be where I'm at right now and managing my own dairy, or I guess my family's dairy. What you want and not what everybody else wants. You might not know right off the bat going to college. Like I started off pre-vet and I ended up changing. You know, they say average people change 3 times when they're in college. So don't freak out when you don't know what you're doing. I didn't know what I was doing 3 months before I graduated college. So don't feel bad if you don't know what you love, but I encourage you all to find what you do love. And that's it.
Questions? I'll bring this around like we've done in the past. Pop your hand up, and I'll bring you the microphone.
Kristen, I want you to answer for the seniors. I just met with the K-State rep last Friday. Any tips you can give them, those that really interest K-State? And that's for everybody, freshmen on through. Could you have done something different in high school to not run into the freshman year struggles up there? Or is there something we're not doing that we should be forcing these guys to do? I know they got to force themselves to do it, but what would you tell them?
I would say teachers make things harder. Give them quizzes. I have all of my classes. Honestly, guys, you laugh at that now, and you're going to get to college, and you're going to be like, holy cow, like, different world. A lot of my classes, we have weekly quizzes. So you have to study for them, otherwise they're not easy quizzes. You'll fail them. And quizzes are a big chunk of your grades. Another thing, cell phones. I know they're all really popular right now. I've had professors that if they see you on your cell phone, they'll stop class. They'll call you right out. They'll say, put your cell phone away. So, you know, while you're in school, we take it sometimes for granted, but we are really privileged to have great education in the U.S. So, you know, use it.
Other questions?
Hi, I'm Kara Ayers. I'm the Spanish teacher. So I didn't meet you from 4 years ago. I've been here for a year, so it's nice to meet you. I wanted to ask if you could speak to the students about, because if you were in Liberal and California both, maybe you could speak a little bit to the importance of language.
Yes, that was one thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, but I didn't really fit it in because I expected it to go a little longer. But anyway, that is probably one of my biggest regrets is I took 2 years of Spanish in high school and I didn't take any in college. Spanish is very, very valuable. If you are dual language, your pay just ups a few thousands. Living in Liberal, I was one of 2 females on a purely Mexican farm. About 2 of them spoke American. So you can imagine barely any Spanish, maybe my colors, my food. That was about all I knew. Trying to get along with that. That was pretty difficult. That was one of the struggles I had in Liberal. Same thing with California. There's a lot of Hispanics out there. They are better English, but you're still working with them and you go deeper. At the level that I want to be at, a manager, then your Hispanics are you're more of your workers, and they may not be educated enough in English that you have to communicate with them. But if I don't have that bilingualness, I'm not going to get that manager position because I can't communicate between the owner and them. And that's probably a biggest factor. So if you're not in Spanish, I highly advise you to take it. And if you are into it, I advise you to continue it in college. It's very valuable.
I have one other question about that.
Go for it.
How, so probably 10, 15 years ago, agribusiness companies would hire interpreters to handle in-house communication. Today, since you've recently come out of those big agribusiness companies, how many of the management are bilingual?
let's see, my manager that I was with, he was bilingual, he was very good at it. A lot of, I would say within my company, not very so much, but on farms, within the farms, their probably head manager was bilingual on every farm. So there's at least one person every farm or within every industry that's bilingual. So there's not very many, so it's a very valuable trait. Any more?
Other questions?
You can ask me anything about college. I'll tell you.
Anybody brave enough? Oh, there we go.
You're going? Okay. So, college that you went to, right? Okay. Is the food good at your college?
Was the food good at my college? So they say. First of all, I would recommend everybody to live in the dorms their first year. Great experience. Well, great and not so great. I liked living in the dorms, but I don't like living in the dorms. But you get the chance to meet a lot of people, whether you're friends with them still or not. I'm not really friends with many people that I met my freshman year, but I saw what campus has to offer and gotten interactive that way. So I would advise you to live in the dorms, first of all. Second of all, going to the food. They say that Kansas State's food's pretty good. Did I really eat there? No. So that I can't tell you. But I can tell you that they do have a wide variety of stuff. K-State they have like a Chinese line, a Mexican line, American line, pizza line. They have ice cream all the time. It's a good variety.
Other questions? Other questions? Anybody? Kristen, I've got one for you. You graduated with your degree, correct? So, guys over there, is that sophomore group? I need you to pay attention. A lot of people go to college and don't necessarily come out with a degree. What would you say for you was some of the factors that went into you actually finishing that and persisting through?
There's a couple factors. Probably I would say my parents played a really big role into that. There was a couple of times where I really didn't want to finish. I just wanted to go back and go on the farm. So that was kind of one of my factors. And then for me, within my direct family, I was a first generation college graduate. So I was kind of another pusher. I wanted to kind of succeed and be that first college graduate. Another thing was the people. When they say you meet your best friends in college, you really do. Like you go home for Christmas breaks and you miss them. You miss kind of being with them and everything. So then that kind of drove me to going back to college, I guess.
Family, relationships, connections, friends, that kind of thing. And you got plugged into different places too.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
All right. Any other questions before we end the session here? Okay, let's give her one more round of applause and thank her for coming here, giving her time today.